Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
8:37 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson, Larry O'Connor in the house today. We are very pleased to be joined on the phone by Senator Rand Paul, a senator from the great state of Kentucky. Senator, how are you today?
Good morning. Glad to be with you.
All right, let me start first by talking about the only thing anybody in Washington is talking about in official circles beyond the Redskins and RG3 is what's going on with the negotiations to resolve our deficit problem so we don't go over the fiscal cliff. From what I'm hearing, the answer to that question is not much. Are you hearing anything different?
Well, I can tell you what's not going on. There's no discussion of cutting any spending. And there's no discussion of trying to let people who earn money keep more of the money they earn. So really the opposite's going on. They want to talk about, or at least the president does, how they want to increase spending and how they want to increase taxes, which I think is really a recipe for turning us back towards recession.
As part of this, we've been talking this morning about how the GOP seems to be divided, and that a lot of the so-called Tea Party folks are not very happy, especially with Speaker Boehner and the nature of his negotiations. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, I think what we stand for as Republicans is limited government and lower taxes. You know, the best way to stimulate the private sector is to leave more money in the private sector, so that doesn't even mean revenue-neutral tax reform. It means we should cut taxes. The other thing about this is there are many historic examples of lowering tax rates and actually increasing revenue. Just in 2003, when Bush lowered rates, tax revenue went up, and actually the rich paid a higher percentage of the revenue when we lowered rates. The problem we got into had nothing to do with tax rates. It had to do with the recession. So really we should be discussing not whose taxes to rates to raise or who to punish. We should be talking about how do we get the economy growing again.
Senator Paul, I know that you couldn't get out of your father's house without knowing the Constitution pretty well. And, the president's proposal is that he can now, he wants to be able to increase the debt ceiling unilaterally all by himself from the executive branch, completely bypassing the Congress. How does that square with your understanding of Article 1?
Well, I guess you didn't hear the news. You heard he was elected king, right? When you're king, you can do whatever you want. And so that's my fear.
Well, why aren't your colleagues speaking out more forcefully about this? And I'm not just your Republican colleagues. The Democrats should not want this to happen.
Well, we have this problem on both sides of the aisle, speaking out about Congress trying to maintain its authority and prerogative. You know, the Constitution gives power not only over, borrowing money to Congress, over raising taxes to Congress, but it also says, like on issues of war, we're supposed to be the ones who discuss and declare war. And Congress basically gives that up all the time. So, yeah, I think it is a problem, and people should be looking at the Constitution and the separation of powers. And I look at it regardless of who's president, whether it's Republican or Democrat, although so far I've only had Democrats as president since I've been here. But I don't look at it with regard to party. I just say the Constitution wanted the power separated, and much of that power to be left with Congress, and that includes the borrowing power.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul is our guest. And Senator Paul, you were asked by a local station in Kentucky earlier this week whether you have any interest in running for president. Now, your answer was that you want to be a part of the national conversation. Should we take that as an indication that you're thinking seriously about a run in 2016?
Well, I can tell you, as you ask the same question, you get the same answer. I am. I won't say that I'm not interested in that I might someday. I don't know if it'll happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen, and probably wouldn't know for 2 years. But I do know that Republicans need to stand for something, and I want to make sure that we have a firm spine and that we do stand for limited government, lower taxes, the Constitution. And I think we also need to have some candidates ultimately who believe in a more constitutional foreign policy, which means we don't have to be everywhere all the time around the world.
Let me follow up on this idea that the Republicans should stand for something. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Looking back at the Reagan coalition that really built what we know now as the modern-day Republican Party, it seemed to me that stool had three legs. It was the National Defense Republicans. It was the Christian coalition that was very strong and is still strong in the Republican Party. And then there was the Libertarian leg. There was a very strong Libertarian streak to the creation of the modern-day Republican Party. And if if you look at where we have gone and you look at the last few nominees that we have had, would you agree that that strong, small government, libertarian, constitutional voice that had been part of the Republican Party has really been neglected?
Yes, and I think that's why also we're struggling more as a party. You know, we're not competitive on the West Coast. We're not competitive in New England. And so I think part of that libertarian streak that might attract moderates and independents would be that if your teenage son or daughter is caught with marijuana, we don't want to put them in jail for 20 years. So I think there are some libertarian type issues that would make a difference. On immigration, we're not going to pick up 12 million people and ship them home, that kind of thing. And so if people are willing to work, we're willing to have them in our country. So I think there are a lot of issues like that, as well as having a less bellicose foreign policy, that do appeal across the aisle. One of the interesting things about my dad was he didn't win a primary, but when you polled him against Obama, he got 25% of the Democrat vote, and he polled neck and neck with Obama.
All right, I got to ask you another political question, and there's this word out there that actress Ashley Judd wants to run against Mitch McConnell, or some people say alternatively she may wait and run against you. Are you prepared for a candidacy against Ashley Judd, sir?
I heard she lives in Scotland. I thought she was running for Parliament.
Oh, it's getting ugly already.
I mean, seriously, what do you think about Ashley Judd as a senator?
I think she'd fit right in the English Parliament. I mean, she's way damn too liberal for our country, for our state. She hates our biggest industry, which is coal. So I say good luck bringing the I hate coal message to Kentucky.
It is down. You know what? We need to have the debate between Rand Paul and Naomi.
Right.
Is it Naomi? Which one is it?
It's
one of the judges.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. She's got to get back and forth between Scotland and Kentucky to campaign. They don't have the Concorde anymore.
Look at that.
They
All
have
right.
to fly her personal jet.
Hey, Senator Paul, Merry Christmas. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks.